The Forward Thinker Show is available wherever you listen to your podcasts. Celebrating Women's History Month. Hey, it's Coral, and welcome to the Forward Thinker Show, the podcast where we share the stories and expertise of global leaders in business and technology. Today, we're joined by Mareline Ramirez,
Hello.
MLH Top 50 Hackers and former director of Tech Together, Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for inviting me
Hi,
over to this
Mareline.
podcast.
How are you?
I'm good. I live in Broward, so I got to experience the Miami traffic again.
Oh.
Very lovely.
We love
so much fun.
South Florida gang, you know. I'm so excited. Oh my God, I love Mareline. We worked together before, and I just love her energy and her expertise. And it's just like, when you work with her, you're like, oh shoot, she's smart. Like, damn, like she knows how to organize and everything. I'm like, wait a minute. But then when I got to know her, I was just like, okay, yeah, we have to bring you on. Well, Mareline, I wanna get started with like your story, of course. Let's start with, where are you from?
So I was raised and born in Miami, Florida, but my family, they're all from Honduras.
Honduras.
Yeah,
Ooh.
Honduras. So I am a first generation student. Latina, and I'm very proud of like my background.
Yes. So one of the things that we're gonna talk about today is like how you can pivot into something so unknown like in tech. And after hearing your story, I'm just like, yeah, we have to share your story of like, how did you get into tech?
So how I got into tech, it's a very long story because first of all, I didn't even think I was going to be in the tech industry or the tech environment. Growing up, I was always surrounded by the healthcare industry. Like my family, especially my family in Honduras, they're very big about healthcare and just like working as a nurse or as a doctor. So I wanted to do the same thing, mainly because I was really passionate about like the problem solving aspect of healthcare, but also helping others out. But that didn't really work so well due to like the pandemic season. So I was in Florida International University from 2017 to 2020, and life had other plans for me. I was diagnosed with like a rare brain condition, and so yes, it gave me like frequent migraines, and it gave me like ADHD like symptoms. So I did make a bunch of mistakes, not working in the healthcare, right? But it made me like step back and like self-reflect, like what is it that I truly wanted to do, and what is it that I found fulfillment from. So I was part of like FIU's like pre-PA organization as their vice president, and since it was a pandemic season, everything was remote. So I wanted to get creative. I had the extra time, and I had to like pivot from healthcare to something else that was less stressful. I'm not sure if you heard like stories about the healthcare industry, but it is
not for the weak.
Not for the weak. Like, hearts out to like those who actually stayed in the healthcare industry, because it's not for me.
Yeah.
Like we had like I had like workshops and events where pre-PAs and doctors would like come in and they'd be like, yeah, I cried out almost every single day during school. Not for me. I also worked as like a medical assistant, and not for me either. Not for me either. Not for me. So yeah, I had friends at FIU who were studying computer science as well, and they're like, screw the healthcare industry, you gotta switch over to CS. And I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. Let me just take my time and explore like other options that I had available. And again, back to like the being VP of FIU pre-PA, I wanted to create a website. Since we were all going remote, I still wanted to interact with the members and just provide them the resources. I've always been someone who's like always giving somebody like, hey, here's the resources for this. Here's if you need any help, here's that. Yeah. And what's a perfect way to do that versus like a website? But when I started, I was like, what the hell do you do? Yeah. Who am I?
How do these buttons work?
Yeah, like where does this line mean? What is it? Who am I to like come up here and like with no foundation whatsoever saying I can build a website?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't end up building a website from scratch. You know, I just used like the regular Google site, and then just seeing how like people were using that website and how much resources it actually provided to them and how much it helped them made me see that like, okay, I can actually pivot into tech and just further explore more about what I want to do. Because there's like different sections of tech that you can like participate in, right? But that was the start of it, just the problem solving, and it still had an impact, and I still helped others, even though it's not healthcare related, but it still gave me fulfillment.
And like it's funny because you were in a completely different field, and then you decided to just pivot into tech. And so what was it about like those people that encouraged you to pivot into tech? What did they do to help you get there?
So these girls, I would say they're very like influential people in tech as well. They're like one of the friends that I've knew from high school, so I respected what they said a lot, and they were studying CS. It was just like the support and community that they gave me. Yeah, the support in the community that they gave me, and just like letting me know it's okay, you know, just entering into the unknown. You have time to explore everything. You don't have to necessarily do like one. Your like journey is like not one linear thing. You can just like branch out to different things, and it's gonna be okay, because we're always here if you need like any resources or like mentorship. And I think that's what like truly helped me. Like, okay, I can go in, and what's the worst that can happen? I drop out. Okay, I can explore other things.
Yeah. So you always felt like, oh, if this doesn't work out, I have my community to support me, and if anything, I have other options as well.
Yeah.
So having optionality and community helped you pivot into tech. How was it like when you were the first time coding?
Awful. It was awful. It was
Stack Overflow.
Yes, Stack Overflow, Google, YouTube. Oh my goodness. So, because I'm like a first generation student, I didn't have anyone there to like really like tell me or give me resources from like my family side, right? To tell me, hey, this is what I did when I was pursuing like CS and like some other students that I spoke with, right? So I had to like do it on my own and just like really put in a lot of hours. But I realized I didn't like that. So for me to learn instead, I decided what's the best way to learn when you can teach other students like introduction to like programming. So that's when I got into like UPE. It was like the Ignite program that they had, right? Where you taught like little kids how to like the basics of coding. And I was like, okay, yeah, it reinforces some of the CS rules and whatnot. And I have to like, when I'm teaching them, I have to be good. So I have to get my things together. And that what helped motivated me while like learning how to code. So it was awful at first, but I needed to find motivation to like continue.
I see there's like a pattern, like you're always like in service of others, and the best way you learn is by being of service for others. Yeah. Do you feel like that's a sort of like a cultural thing, a personal thing, or?
I feel like it is a personal thing to me, because I came from a very giving family where it was always like my family, they're very giving. I mean, in Honduras, my aunt, who's a nurse, she makes sure to like provide back to like the community, or like if they needed anything, she's always there, like no matter what. And that began with our other family, where it's like, okay, no matter what, just like give back, it'll come back either way. And there's always like a community that's needed.
Yeah. And it's so after that, how was it jumping from that to building a whole freaking hackathon with all these people and actually giving back to the community in such a much bigger way than I would imagine someone who didn't know how to code would actually do?
So because during this time, I like to document what I like to do, because first of all, everything that I like wanted to pursue is like gone now, because I no longer could do the things. I had to do things that were like
healthcare.
I had to do things that were like much more aligned with me and like for my own personal goals. So I documented everything to just see the snowball effect. So it's like, okay, I started small. I like to see them add up, and just added them on LinkedIn. And the reason why the whole hackathon came was because Fiona, who was the founder of Tech Together, saw my leadership quality, and she reached out to me, and she's like, hey, you know, you look like someone who has the potential to be a director for Tech Together Miami. Are you interested? And I was like, yeah, why not? This is something that can be interesting for me. I can learn. I can, like, grow myself and my network, because when you're a director for, like, an organization, you have to really put yourself out there. And that being the director of Tech Together was, like, an inviting challenge for me to put myself out there and grow my connection. And just really learn how it is to just build a community, connect with the community, first of all, and then find the motivation as to why I wanted to build that community.
Did building Tech Together, helping create the Tech Together hackathon help you at all as an engineer, or, like, help you understand what the problems of the community were?
It did. In order to build the hackathon first, I needed to explore what hackathons were like and what were the problems of the hackathon, because Tech Together Miami is supposed to be an inclusive and welcoming space for students from underrepresented backgrounds, which I'm from that underrepresented background. The first hackathon that I went to, it was just like a hackathon for all, right? Which there's no problem with that, but there wasn't any, like, beginner friendly hackathons, right? Where it made me feel welcomed and safe, like knowing, hey, I can, like, code a project and, like, nobody's gonna judge me because I don't know how to code, or what I turned in is, like, all broken, right? Or there wasn't, like, the first hackathon I attended wasn't, like, an all-inclusive hackathon too. So there's majority of them were men versus, like, women. So there's, like, around, like, 5-6 men for, like, 1 woman. And if it makes you feel like an outsider. So being with Tech Together and, like, attending my first Tech Together hackathon, they have, like, 6 different chapters. I attended the Chicago and New York one virtually. They're all virtual. It made me feel and realize the importance of having that inclusive, welcoming space and representation as someone who feels like an outsider. And that's what motivated me to continue this, like, community building, but for students who were in my same position. It's
always important to give back. I actually forgot to ask you a question in the beginning. For people who don't know, what is a hackathon?
A hackathon is it can be a 24 to, like, 36-hour event where you're given a question and your task is to find a solution to that question, right? So I know that we went to a hackathon together, HSI Battle of the Brain, and their problem was how to have, like, accessible healthcare for all. And you can get as creative as you can, right? You get into groups of 4 or 6, and you all just plan out an idea there and build, like, a product that answers that questions. Not necessarily answer it, but you build something, and you get to network with other students who are like-minded. It's not just about building a project too. It's also about, like, growing yourself professionally and personally through the workshops that they host. Like, they can give you a workshop on HTML and CSS or how to, like, design your web page, or how to it can be, like, a wide range of topics.
And it's like it's a really good way to learn about software when you're a beginner, because you said that imagine if you didn't have those friends who actually were supportive of you, who wanted to help you out when you first started off as an engineer, like, having that environment, like you said, having community is so important when you're first starting out.
Yes, it is. And hackathons are actually really good for that, especially beginner ones, because they give you the resources for them too. So some hackathons, they give you codes to try out their products for free for, like, the duration of the hackathon. And there you go. You have, like, 24 to 36 hours to learn how to use that product, or at least, like, test with them. And then you can test with them outside. But you're putting yourself out there and, like, you know, putting a foot in.
What would you say to people who are not in the tech world and want to, like, they want to dive in, they want to pivot, Do you like what would your advice would be when they're attending their first hackathon, or like if they're too scared to even do a hackathon? Like, what tips would you give them?
The tips I would give them, well, I would try to understand why they're afraid of like participating. Is it because they're afraid of making mistakes? Because if it is, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Or what is it that's like not letting you participate? I feel like that's something I would want to self-reflect first. But also, don't be afraid of trying out new things. You never know what you're going to get out of that, from that experience. And see, what do you like? Do you like going in person, or do you want to try virtual? Because there's like an in-person hackathon, and then there's a virtual hackathon where you can just be in your own space and time and just try different things out and go at your pace. You don't have to do everything all at once, because then you'll get burnt out. But you can do things little by little. When I first started, I didn't immediately start creating projects because I'm like, who am I to do all of that, right? But I attended workshops that were beginner friendly, and I tried taking some notes. I always like carry like a notebook around with me. We love our
notebooks.
Yeah. I always carry a notebook around with me. So I take notes here and there and just like at least put in some practice in, and practice like self-care and self-forgiveness. So if I walk into a hackathon and I had like this one goal to like complete a project, right? But I didn't do that. That's okay. You know, at least I put myself out there and I gave myself the chance to try out something new.
Give yourself the chance to try out something new, and self-forgiveness. Yeah. That's like, I guess that's what makes people who are afraid of coding kind of like not go in, because they're too hard on themselves.
Definitely. I used to be hard on myself too, but again, like putting myself out there and finding that community, that's where I first found my community. It was through my friends who I was like really lucky enough to have friends who were studying CS, but also having that hackathon community that had the similar experience. So I was not alone in that aspect of like, oh, everything is breaking, everything is failing apart, because everyone else is like going through the same thing. So it validates like my own feelings, and and
it's like, even if like if you want to like build your own thing, or like, you know, go into a company to be an engineer, everyone starts somewhere, and I think a hackathon is like the perfect place for it. You don't have to necessarily know how to code to be in a hackathon. You can just be someone with an idea, and I feel like people think it's all about like building like the world's most amazing project software
ever. No,
you need to pitch it to 300 VCs in Silicon Valley. The thing, I was like,
Girl, I remember my first hackathon. I'm like, I'm gonna build like the most amazing like project ever, and like it's
and
gonna
all
be
these
super
features.
Girl, I pitched it to one of my teammates, and they were like, girl, you're crazy. You think we have enough time to do all of that in 24 hours? And I'm like,
I don't
we
know.
might. We didn't. But it's about how to sell yourself and how to pitch your own stories to these judges, right? So I feel like that's also another good thing that hackathon teaches you. And it's how to build your story, how to like sell your products, the whys and the hows, right? And then how to give like a really good story to sell it to them.
And it's like, even like, because I remember my first hackathon, I didn't code, I just like watched the engineers do their thing. But even doing that, like my friend who was like really good at like the software that we were building, he was teaching me how to do email authentication for like a login page, and he showed me how he did it, and I was like, whoa, that's how you do it. And then he just like, I learned along with him how to bake it, and it didn't necessarily mean that like I had to be perfect at it, but now I understand some more of the terms, because
it just reminded me too. Just like be open-minded about like what you want from the hackathon, but also find open-minded groups who are willing to teach you. Because you got really lucky with the group that like wanted to like walk you through like how to teach you email authentication, right? So that's the fun part about having a hackathon. Not everyone is going to be like shut in, right? Everyone is always like more than happy to help out.
Yeah.
You just need to ask.
Yeah, that's the thing. Asking is hard.
Girl, I feel like it takes practice.
Yeah.
It definitely does. At this point, I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna send my message, and if they say no, okay, I can ask the next person. Next.
Some people, I would be afraid to be like, oh, I want to build with you. Actually, no. Actually, I don't like you.
But then that's okay, though. I mean, you know, it's not meant to be. And now you can find somebody else who's like much more compatible. And then you can find somebody else who's more willing, not more willing, but like who's able to like guide you and support you through this, right?
Let's talk about the benefits, because now we just understood the struggles. Let's talk about some of the benefits of pivoting into tech.
Okay, so some of the benefits of pivoting into tech, I would say it made me a much more confident person. I feel like when I was in healthcare, I followed like a certain structure. Right? It's just like, okay, here's all your prerequisites. You need 6,000 clinical hours, and then it was just something that was like written out to me, and like, okay, I know what to do. Versus tech, where it's all about building your own personal project and just putting yourself out there. So I think that's like one of the benefits. You get to grow yourself professionally. I mean, not saying that you don't grow yourself professionally, personally through healthcare, but I had to be much more creative in the tech space, right? Because everyone is doing the same thing. So what can I do to stand out, and what's my own personal branding? And I feel like pivoting into tech really helped me answer those questions. Which is like, okay, I'm someone who likes to do much more like a front end thing. So I have to get creative and find my own personal projects that will help me, you know, to that goal.
Do you feel like being in healthcare has helped you in any way in your tech career? Because I find that like there might be some benefits of like having a different perspective of how things work. Like, how do you feel like how has healthcare, like your experience in healthcare, helped you in your tech experience?
I feel like it made me I'm a very like organized and structured person, so I feel like healthcare really helped me in that. It also made me much more like, I had to talk to a lot of people. So definitely the people talking aspect of it really helped me a lot. But I would say it's mainly just being organized and structured with like my routines and what I need to do in order to accomplish my goal. In order to start out like a project or a plan, for example, for me, my project was to build a hackathon that's like a welcoming space for everyone, right? I need to like create a plan. Like, first, what's my vision and goal for this event? What is it that I want to do? What's the impact that I want to see? And I write like a step-by-step plan just on how to do that. And just like being structured and organized, it helps facilitates everything much easier, and you're most likely to stick with it. I feel.
You'll like, yeah, there's so many benefits to like because there's so many things inside tech that are so important that are outside of software, that if you come from a different background, a different perspective, whether you're a chef or a social media marketing person, a tree planter, there's always something that you can do in tech.
You can always apply those skills into tech.
Those interpersonal skills, people skills, organizational skills. Yeah. So that it makes it easier. And also, what would you say, like, and like I would say there's also different opportunities in technology, because technology is not just about building software, because there's so much about building software, selling software, making software that is not just engineering.
When you mentioned that, I was thinking more of like product managing and let's say just like UI UX research and whatnot, where you can build all the technology in the world, but if you don't really think about like who you're building that technology for, it's really not going to go anywhere. So you really have to think about like who you're building these technology for. Think about like the user, like user centered.
No, yeah, it's not just about building, but also, you know, there, like you said, project management, you know, making sure that the engineers and all the other people who are in the group, whether that's QA testers, UX, UI designers, you know, cybersecurity people, it takes somebody who can take the lead and like organize those people to build software to make it happen. And that's what's important. And also, if you want to do software, you also want to you want to be able to focus on the things that you have to do.
Yeah.
And you
like,
can't,
why are you building the software to begin with?
Yeah, and that way you can understand who, if like, let's say I'm building software for a restaurant in Honduras. Yeah. But if I don't put anything on my page that's in Spanish, then what is the software for? Yeah. Oh, how can I optimize the page so that it can work with the Wi-Fi signals over there? If you don't know that, then you're gonna make the most spectacular product, but then when the person in Honduras uses it,
they're gonna be like, what is this? This is not
page,
for me.
The page doesn't even load. Like, if the page doesn't even load, then like the product's not working. So that's why it's so important for people like you know, first generation, and people who have also come from a background in something different can actually help you with that.
Yeah, different perspectives definitely help, because you get to understand like what is it that the person is looking for, right? I'm currently taking like a project management certification, and like one thing they always like drill into your head is like always ask questions of like, what is the purpose of the product that you're building, right? So, or like the program that you're initiating, right? Who is it for? What is it for? You have to like really like narrow it down to like what's the purpose of it, and you have to like put yourself in other shoes.
Yes. And it's like, if you come from a different background, you can even become a consultant if you don't even want to get into tech. Because your experiences and your expertise could actually help make the product better. Yeah. Doctors and nurses, they use technology every day. And
those technologies are so slow. So one of the technology I remember using was like an EMR. And
yes, EMRs, yeah.
They're so slow, and there's so many buttons. It's not really like user friendly at all, and there's really nothing much you can do except for like, okay, hope somebody does it better next time.
Well, we can have somebody who's worked in healthcare could build a product, a startup to make those more efficient, but I don't know.
Good luck to that person though. Good luck to that person. It's not gonna be me.
Please help me convince her to build this startup. Let's make it happen. Hi, Mareline. This was so good. I think we've learned so much today, honestly. What is, okay, let's say a last piece of advice for somebody who wants to pivot into tech.
Some of the advices I have is to develop your resilience. So I feel like, from my background, I feel like coming from my healthcare family, but also like, you know, just a Hispanic family overall, they definitely built my resilience, because they view mistakes, no's, and failures as feedback versus a step down or a delay. Like, they never see it as that. They always see it as like a feedback and an opportunity to grow. To a better person.
View feedback as an opportunity to grow, not as a way to put you down.
Always stay curious, because your curiosity is often rewarded. You may never know what's going to happen. Like, the worst that can happen is you don't like it, and then just move on. The world is always running. It's always going to be there. So you can always explore different opportunities. Seek diverse experience to help you gain exposure. When I entered into tech, I didn't really know specifically what I wanted to do, but now I do. Kind of want to be like a product manager in the tech industry. I feel like that's what works best for me, but I've also explored cybersecurity, web development, and every other topic. So seek diverse experience, and you'll get to find what best suits you. Embrace learning. I love learning. I love exploring different like hackathons, tech communities, and even tech conferences, which, don't get me started. I love going to these conferences.
Me too. I always see her on the ones I go to. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on?
And there's always like scholarship. Always like embrace learning, because from these like tech community or meetups, you're going to find someone who's either going to be your mentor, your next friend, your next best friend, or like just like a support group, right? But you wouldn't know that unless you put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Celebrate achievements no matter how small they are, and that's why I called it like a little snowball effect, because when you start small and you continue going, that snowball is going to become like a bigger snowball
and bigger and bigger.
And practice self-care, because I know how the market looks like right now, and especially after recruiting season, I was for sure burnt out, but practice self-care and practice self-forgiveness.
Yeah, that's so important. Thank you so much, Mareline, for coming on today. I'm now going to give you the space to promote anything that you're doing and how people can reach you.
Okay, perfect. So my goals for this year is to, again, give back to the community. So I'm still figuring out how. But one way you can reach out to me is via LinkedIn. I want to be able to mentor students who also came from, like, you don't have to come from similar backgrounds, but at least, like, if you want to start tech, reach out to me. I want to give out like free resources. I want to be a mentor for these type of students. So definitely reach out to me via LinkedIn.
Yeah, of course. That sounds so great. Thank you so much, Mareline, for coming on today. This is a great episode.
Thank you for listening to the Forward Thinkers Show.